Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the following motion. The establishment of the National Dialogue Committee. Mr. Speaker, aware that Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya provides that all sovereign powers belong to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with the Constitution. Further aware that Article 1(2) of the Constitution provides that the people of Kenya may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representatives. Conscious that Article 10 of the Constitution espouses the national values and principles of governance, which include the rule of law, democracy, and participation of the people. Further conscious that Article 94 of the Constitution provides that Parliament manifests the diversity of the nation, represents the will of the people, and exercises their sovereignty. Recognizing that there is need to embrace consultation, dialogue, and consensus building as a way of resolving issues of concern to the people of Kenya. Cognizant that despite the constitutional and legal reforms on the electoral process and the electoral laws after every election cycle, there has been mistrust of electoral outcomes, leaving the country divided. Further cognizant that efforts to enhance constitutionalism, the rule of law, and respect for human rights need to be promoted. Aware that there have been previous calls and attempts to build consensus on issues of concern to the people of Kenya through bipartisan engagements in Parliament, appreciating the need to establish an inclusive forum for dialogue, consultation, and consensus building in seeking to promote peace, stability, and prosperity of the country, acknowledging that the majority party in Parliament and the minority party in Parliament have agreed to embrace dialogue through the establishment of a National Dialogue Committee to recommend a way forward on issues of concern to the people of Kenya. Now, therefore, the Houses of Parliament resolved as follows. 1, that the two Houses of Parliament establish a National Dialogue Committee consisting of 10 members to represent Kenya Kwanza Alliance, referred to as Kenya Kwanza, a coalition constituting the majority party of the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya and Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party, a coalition forming the minority party of the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya. 2, that each coalition shall appoint 5 members to the National Dialogue Committee. 3, that the membership of the National Dialogue Committee shall be drawn from Parliament and outside of Parliament. 4, that the National Dialogue Committee shall comprise the following members to represent Kenya Kwanza. 1, the Honorable Kimani Ichungwa. 2, Governor Cecil Mbarire as a Deputy Delegation Leader. 3, Senator Aaron Cheruiyot. 4, Senator Hassan Omar Hassan. 5, the Honorable Catherine Wambilianga. That the National Dialogue Committee shall comprise the following members to represent Azimio. 1, His Excellency Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka as a delegation leader. 2, Honorable Opio Wandai as a deputy delegation leader. 3, the Honorable Amina Mnyazi. 4, Honorable Eugene Wamalwa. 5, the Honorable Senator Okongo Mogeni. 6, that the mandate of the National Dialogue Committee shall be to facilitate dialogue and consensus building and recommend appropriate constitutional, legal, and policy reforms on issues of concern to the people of Kenya to be framed by the National Dialogue Committee in line with the Constitution and the laws of the Republic of Kenya and respecting the functional and institutional integrity of state organs. The Houses of Parliament notes 7, that the technical teams representing Kenya Kwanza and Azimio shall support the National Dialogue Committee. 8, that the technical team representing Kenya Kwanza shall comprise the following persons. 1, Dr. Muthomi Thiankolu. 2, Dr. Linda Musumba. 3, Dr. Duncan Ojwang. 4, Nick Biketi. 9, that the technical committee representing Azimio shall comprise the following persons. 1, the Honorable Jeremiah Kioni. 2, Professor Adam Zolo. 3, Abubakar Zain Abubakar. And 4, Lynn Ngugi. 10, that further the National Dialogue Committee shall be assisted by 2 officers designated as communication secretariats, one of whom shall be appointed by the leader of majority and the other by the leader of the minority party. 11, that the National Dialogue Committee shall formulate and adopt a framework agreement to guide the bipartisan talks. 12, the National Dialogue Committee shall report to the leadership of the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio coalition within 60 days, and after that submit its report to Parliament. 13, that in execution of its mandate, the National Dialogue Committee may invite and engage with and consider submissions from stakeholders, collect views from the public, and engage experts, professionals, and other technical resource persons as necessary. 14, that the National Dialogue Committee shall determine its own rules of procedure. 15, that the speakers and the clerks of both houses of parliament shall provide the secretariat and any other necessary support to facilitate the work of the National Dialogue Committee. Mr. Speaker, sir, as you might be aware, our colleagues in the National Assembly passed this motion last week. As a House, Mr. Speaker, we ought to have passed it immediately soon after so that we can begin our operations at the National Dialogue Committee. But we are all aware, Mr. Speaker, that as a House we were on recess, but we felt that given the urgency and the importance of this committee, the sacred nature of the assignment that is before them, it will be unfair to us as a House, Mr. Speaker, if we carried on with our recess and wait until mid of September to come and pass this motion. Then we will continue to carry on the long, wrongly held belief, Mr. Speaker, that Senate is a second thought. The Senate of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, is not a second thought. The people of Kenya bequeathed unto themselves this House and believe that it carries equal, if not even far more important powers, Mr. Speaker, than that of the National Assembly, especially on matters that are of great national importance, such as the one that is before us. It is in light of this, Mr. Speaker, that I sought the concurrence of our colleagues, including the leadership of the minority side, and we signed on to have this special sitting and consider this particular matter alongside other urgent business that is before us today, Mr. Speaker. But of most importance, Mr. Speaker, is that we get to sit down and seek the endorsement of our colleagues from Parliament. Mr. Speaker, you have heard me read from Article 1(2) of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, that Parliament represents the diversity of our people. That when we gather here, Mr. Speaker, it is a gathering of all the 45 million Kenyans plus, Mr. Speaker. That because it was not possible to have all of us as the people of Kenya gather in one place at one particular time and location, therefore Kenyans elect their representatives. And on many occasions, they speak either directly as a people or indirectly through their representatives, through the donated power that these members in this House carry. Mr. Speaker, we are seeking the blessings of the people of Kenya to sit at a table and reason together, Mr. Speaker. This is in follow, Mr. Speaker, for those of us that profess a Christian faith. We are urged many times in the Bible that even our good Lord reminds us that when there are challenges, it's good to come, sit down and reason together. It's on that basis, Mr. Speaker, that we have had this opportunity to sit down and listen to one another. It doesn't mean, Mr. Speaker, that for all the things that are on the table, we shall eventually agree. But at least there's nothing better, Mr. Speaker, than giving an ear to the person that holds a contrary view to whatever positions that you hold, Mr. Speaker. That is how great democracies are built, Mr. Speaker, by learning the art and the discipline of listening to one another, even when you don't agree, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, the nations that have gone to war is because people stopped talking to one another and they felt that the only important noise is the sound of guns and bombs, Mr. Speaker, which is not the route that we want to take as a country, Mr. Speaker, because we know for 60 good years, 60 plus, that Kenya has existed as a republic. It is not because those who are in leadership at that particular time did not face challenges, Mr. Speaker. They had challenges and they found ways of surmounting those particular challenges. They found ways of coming together and reasoning. Mr. Speaker, in fact, I may be quite young, and in fact, Mr. Speaker, the truth of the matter is that I never saw the first president of this republic, President Jomo Kenyatta. But at least as a student of primary and partly in high school before he retired, I saw through the leadership of President Moi, followed by President Mwai Kibaki. At least then I had become an adult. And President Uhuru, who was just retired, and we had the opportunity to serve together in one political party, Mr. Speaker. I can recall, Mr. Speaker, that in each of all those presidencies, there were moments when they sat back and reflected with colleagues from across the floor, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, Back then it was easy, Mr. Speaker, because presidents were members of parliament, and therefore they would dialogue easily. Sometimes either through motions such as this, or even presently on the floor of the House of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, for which quite a number of us in this House, including yourself, Mr. Speaker, had the opportunity to serve in that particular House, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to urge my colleagues respectfully that let us support this motion, agree with the proposal to send our colleagues to go and listen to each other, give them your blessings, share with them whatever thoughts. We know you have different opinion on many of these issues. Mr. Speaker, in fact, I will report to the House that in the last meeting that we had last week, Mr. Speaker, we have already framed the issues and reduced onto the agenda of what our colleagues from the minority side considered that are issues that are worth conversing about, and those that we felt, Mr. Speaker, needs to be conversed about from the majority side, Mr. Speaker. And we have 5 key or thematic areas, Mr. Speaker, of which tomorrow, when we meet, Mr. Speaker, at the Bomas of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, we shall be considering. Some are of a constitutional nature, some are legislative, some are policy. Mr. Speaker, we shall sit down and agree. Where, for one reason or the other, we are not able to agree, we will come back and report to this House, Mr. Speaker, where our colleagues will have the opportunity to speak and share of whatever thoughts or whatever ways they feel many of those issues need to be resolved, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I believe we are doing this in the best interest of the country. I know people have varied opinion about what they imagine, what they think about this particular issue. I want to give assurance to our colleagues in the House, Mr. Speaker, because I know that initially, when the agenda was listed, the issue, one particular issue that is quite key to members of this House, which is entrenchment of various funds, Mr. Speaker, into the Constitution. The Senate Oversight Fund didn't feature. With me, Mr. Speaker, I have an advanced copy of the agenda for which we shall agree on tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. And under that particular agenda item of entrenching funds into the Constitution, listed as number 1 is the Senate Oversight Fund, the National Government Constituency Development Fund, National Government Affirmative Action Fund, alongside, Mr. Speaker, other outstanding constitutional matters, issues to do with electoral justice and related matters, the restructuring of IBC. Mr. Speaker, you know we passed a law here, I think in the beginning, towards the end of the second session, Mr. Speaker. Many people held different views about it. We know that there is an already established election committee that is continuing with its work, Mr. Speaker, but nothing stops us. That is a matter that is strongly under the purview of the members of parliament, who include the senators that are here, to come back to the House and say, wait a minute, this is a proposal that we gave of the 7 members of a selection panel, but perhaps we hold a different view on how it needs to be done, Mr. Speaker. That powers rest with this particular House, Mr. Speaker. Of course, and so many other issues that have been listed. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I have to be fair to my colleagues, because I know, Mr. Speaker, that we gazetted only the morning session to transact this particular business, and we still have other business that is before us, Mr. Speaker. I don't intend to be longer than that, Mr. Speaker. I want to avail the opportunity so that colleague senators can also have the chance to comment on this particular matter, and we conclude on it. Therefore, I urge all of us in the House, the majority side, the minority side, to close ranks and give this team an opportunity to sit down and reflect on issues that they consider to be important to the people of Kenya. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request my counterpart, the leader of the minority side, Senator Stewart Mazayo, to second this motion. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.